Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zoe Shankley and I'm one of the regional account managers for Scotland Excel. The purpose of our presentation this afternoon is really to give you an insight into Scotland Excel and to explain how a regional approach can actually provide opportunities for SMEs. Collaboration doesn't always mean aggregation. We've heard that mentioned earlier on this morning, and there are actually opportunities out there for SMEs. I think the key is knowing where to find them and how to succeed. What I'd like to do this afternoon, I'll give you a brief background and brief update on the procurement landscape itself. We've also heard this morning myths have been mentioned quite a few times. There are a lot of myths out there, and what I'd like to do this afternoon is to explain how to win business with the public sector. I want to make sure that you have the facts, that you know where to find these opportunities and how to apply, and also more importantly how to win. My colleague Molly Rogan here will take you through this process and give you some hints and tips for being successful, and also where to find support with the process. Bit of background then, you're probably all familiar with this. 2006, John McClellan carried out a review of procurement in Scotland. McClellan's vision was to increase efficiency and professionalism through structured collaboration. The report itself made 82 main recommendations, and this was actually the beginning of the procurement reform programme. Key objectives being cash savings. You've all seen the news with the councils having to do more with less. The pressures are really on in terms of the council's budgets. It's extremely important that councils deliver best value. Efficiency and collaboration. The rationale behind this one: aggregation of spend creates greater purchasing power both for the supplier and the buyer, making better use of scarce procurement resources and the skills, and shared costs and duplication for buyers and again for suppliers. Embed sustainable procurement. One of the examples recently with Scotland Excel is the new Scotland Excel timber contract, which is just in the process of being awarded. Councils decided, they took a decision early on in that process only to accept timber that could be certified from a legal and sustainable source in line with the UK timber policy. So embedding that as part of the process. And finally, improving access to public sector contracts, particularly for SMEs. Categorisation of contracts then, again, most of you may well be familiar with this. Category A contracts are for goods and services that are common across all public sector, so things like stationery and IT equipment. Category B contracts are for goods and services that are common to a specific sector, so it may be local authorities or the NHS or universities, police, fire and rescue. These contracts are delivered by the relevant centres of excellence. Scotland Excel is the centre of excellence that delivers contracts on behalf of all Scottish local authorities. Category C1 contracts are for goods and services that are common to a group of councils or cross-sector public bodies. There are many examples of these contracts, particularly at a regional level, where local authorities are starting to collaborate with their other public sector bodies. I work closely with some of the councils in the Tayside and the Aberdeen region, and they're starting to do that. You'll see more of that coming through. Category C contracts are for single authorities or for a specific local requirement. Scotland Excel itself then was established in April 2008 as the Centre of Excellence in Procurement for Local Government. All 32 local authorities are now signed up. Our head office is based in Paisley, and we have 3 regional offices in Aberdeen, Edinburgh and Inverness. What we do is we facilitate the creation of contracts for goods and services that are common to the local authorities across Scotland. We work with the councils to improve engagement with suppliers, and as part of that process we often hold supplier forums to explain the procurement process and to issue guidance on the electronic tendering system. So for the meat and milk contracts that were awarded recently, we held forums in Central Scotland, Aberdeen, Argyll and Bute and Highland Scotland as well. Part of our role as well is also to promote and share best practice amongst the local authorities. And finally, we provide specialist training courses to enhance the procurement skills within the sector. Snapshot of the portfolio at the moment, 44 live contracts that are available to all local authorities, covering a wide range of contracts: groceries, meat, building and timber, musical instruments, education contracts, bitumen and salt. So there's all sorts of things in there. The contract delivery plan for 2011 has been agreed, and you can actually find that in the contract register, which is published on our own website. In terms of contract value, you can see from this slide that 14% of our contracts are actually valued at over £50 million. That's for the value of the life of the contract, 21% at between 25 to 50 million, and 65% of contracts are valued at less than 25 million. Within that portfolio, we've heard numbers of different figures this morning. Within the portfolio at the moment, for ourselves, we have 391 suppliers, of which 258 are SMEs, which equates to about 65% of our existing suppliers. The total spend in terms of our records with SMEs at the end of last year was just over £48 million. Now that didn't include the legacy ABC contract, so in actual fact the figure may well be higher. With regards to some of the myths, I want to clarify some of the misconceptions that might be out there. Contrary to this slide then, councils don't operate approved suppliers lists. All councils must comply with EU legislation, their standing orders and the financial regulations. A contract must be in place and it must be advertised publicly in OJEU if the public money is spent on a product group valuing more than 156,000 over the contract period. All Scotland Excel contracts are advertised on the Scottish Public Sector Advertising Portal, which was discussed earlier on this morning. All our contracts are advertised there. To allow a fair and transparent system where companies can actually trade with the public sector on a level playing field. Another myth, SMEs don't win national contracts. I just mentioned 65% of Scotland Excel's contracts are actually SMEs. Another one, must be able to service all local authorities. Not necessarily, depends on the lotting strategy. The contract may well be lotted geographically, which allows you to bid for certain lots. Most of Scotland Excel's food contracts are awarded geographically. This allows for suppliers to bid for local business and allows more traceability in food products should there be a necessity to recall any products. It also allows smaller suppliers the ability to bid for areas that they're currently servicing, but more importantly the opportunity to expand their business and bid for more than one area. Good examples of this are recently awarded milk and the butcher meat contracts that were lotted geographically. That said, Scotland Excel still has to advertise and to award the business based upon European legislation. We're no different to anybody else, and we can't change the outcome of that process. Another myth then, tendering process is too complicated. We're trying to make it simpler. You've heard some of the comments this morning around the portal as well and the improvements that they're looking to bring through there. As part of the procurement reform programme, one of the objectives was to standardise procurement processes. So the Scottish Government has introduced the procurement journey, and there are 3 routes or journeys within that. Routes 1 to 3, depending on the complexity of the contract and the risk and the value of the contract. Councils themselves are actually currently working towards aligning their current procurement processes with the procurement journey. If you don't know anything about the local authority procurement processes, this is actually a really good starting point. Don't be put off by having to fill in a great lengthy tender. At Scotland Excel, we often hold the supplier forums where we'll explain that process and take you through the system. Another myth then, as an SME, we need significant investment in accredited quality systems. Suppliers must be able to demonstrate that they can comply with legislation that's relevant to that particular commodity. We recognise, however, that it can be costly for a smaller supplier to get formal accreditation, so as long as the supplier is able to demonstrate their own relevant quality procedures, then that's fine. Detailed management information. This is really important for us. You will be asked to provide management information on a regular basis. It's part of our terms and conditions. This information helps us to track the performance of the contracts and also the level of participation within the contracts.